welcome to Daily News Simplified, the answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading. Today I am going to discuss Delhi edition dated 15th March 2018 of The Hindu. So let's begin. The first important article today appears on page 1 and it reads, "In civic ranking, Pune is maximum city." So this article says that as per the annual survey of India's city systems or ASICS 2017, out of a survey of 23 cities in India based on 150 parameters, Pune has achieved the top rank, whereas the lowest rank has been achieved by Bangalore. So this survey basically takes an account of the urban development in different cities across the country, and on the basis of certain parameters, it provides ranks to different cities. This survey is conducted by an NGO named Janagraha Center for Citizenship and Democracy. So this survey calculates the ranking of these cities on the basis of 4 parameters, and these parameters are firstly urban planning and design, which includes things like sanitation plan, green buildings, public participation and so on. Secondly, urban capacities and resources, which talks about the revenues and expenditures of urban local bodies, about the staff requirements and so on. Thirdly, transparency and accountability, which talks about adequate gender representation, role of council in approving the budget and so on. And lastly, legitimate political representation, which includes categories like ombudsman, single window civic centers, citizen satisfaction survey and so on. And on the basis of these 4 parameters, the ASICS score is evaluated. So till now we have understood about the annual survey of India's city systems as well as the main parameters of this survey. So compared to 2016, the scores of certain cities have improved considerably in 2017. These cities include Surat, Pune, Ahmedabad and so on. And one of the reasons for an improvement in their scores is the implementation of the Amrut scheme, which stands for Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation. Basically, this scheme helps these cities to develop into smart cities. So we should also discuss some of the key points of this Amrut scheme here. So the Amrut scheme aims to improve the basic urban infrastructure in 500 cities and towns. It aims to cover all the cities and towns with a population of over 1 lakh with notified municipalities, including cantonment boards. Basically, this scheme aims to provide urban facilities such as assured supply of water, sewerage connections, public transport, parks, and so on. So basically, Amrut scheme would bring about urban development in the cities and towns of the country, and it will help in promotion of urban reforms. And these urban reforms would include e-governance, constitution of professional municipal cadre, devolving funds and functions to urban local bodies, review of building bylaws, improvement in assessment and collection of municipal taxes, credit rating of urban local bodies, and citizen-centric urban planning. So basically, the adoption of Amrut scheme has helped these cities in the promotion of urban reforms, and hence it has improved their ranking in the ASICS survey. So this discussion has highlighted the importance of urban development of cities and its role in promoting overall growth of the country. However, there are certain common problems which are faced by all the cities in the country. These problems are weak urban planning framework, poor state of finances, lack of skilled staff and poor management of human resources, low levels of empowerment of mayors and councillors, and absence of platforms where citizens can participate in civic matters. So these are the general issues that are faced by cities in India, and the implementation of schemes like Amrut will help in addressing these issues and improve the cities' rankings in the ASICS survey. So with the help of this article, we have understood about the ASICS survey and about the Amrut scheme, and also about the general problems that are faced by the cities in the country. A similar question pertaining to urban development or development of smart cities has been asked in the past in UPSC exam. So in Mains 2016, a question was asked which said, "What are smart cities?" and examine their relevance for urban development in India. So since we have discussed about the concept of urban development today, questions pertaining to this can be asked further in the mains exams as well, relating to the Amrut scheme and what are the general issues issues that are faced by the cities in India pertaining to urban development. With this, we will move on to the next article. The next important article appears on page 13 and it reads, World Bank sees FY19 growth at 7.3%. So the World Bank has recently released the India Development Update. And as per the World Bank, India is expected to grow at the rate of 7.3% in the financial year 2018-19, and this will help India to achieve a long-term growth of 8%. We should also know that the growth in the current financial year for India is 6.7%, and this is expected to increase to 7.3%. And this increase in growth forecast by World Bank is based on various features of the Indian economy, such as firstly, the Indian economy has been growing steadily and it is experiencing reduced volatility or fluctuations. Secondly, the economic growth in India is being driven by a number of factors, and these growth drivers mainly include exports, consumption and investment. Also, the World Bank has said that the resilience of the Indian economy is very strong. Resilience is strong in the sense that last year various reforms were undertaken in the economy such as GST and demonetization, and despite those shocks, the Indian economy has fared well, reflecting that the economy is resilient. However, despite these positive features, there are also certain challenges which the Indian economy is experiencing, and those challenges are: firstly, private investment in the economy has been declining over the past year, and as a result, this has affected economic growth in the current financial year. Hence, this challenge of poor state of private investments needs to be addressed. Even though public investment in the economy has been increasing, private investment has been declining, which has a negative impact on the economic growth of the country. The other challenge that is being faced by the economy is revival of bank credit. So the bank credit in the economy has been declining due to various factors such as high NPAs, the twin balance sheet problem, and also the various bank frauds that have happened in the recent past. And as a result, bank credit has been negatively affected, which has a direct adverse impact on the level of investment in the economy, and hence it restricts the growth of the economy. Therefore, this challenge of revival of bank credit needs to be addressed. So till now we have discussed about the growth estimate for India by the World Bank. What are the key features of the Indian economy according to the World Bank? What are the various challenges that are being faced by the Indian economy? And now we should understand what should be the way forward to address these challenges and to achieve high growth. Firstly, the country needs a durable revival in private investments and exports. As we know that an increase in investments and exports leads to an increase in GDP growth of the country. Hence, there is a need to revive these two sectors. And the World Bank has suggested that in order to revive these two sectors, the country should take structural reforms. And lastly, the World Bank has suggested that India should not resort to counter-cyclical fiscal policy. And why should this be done? Because if the country undertakes a counter-cyclical fiscal policy, then it may result in putting a pressure on India's fiscal discipline. By fiscal discipline here we mean the government's ability to manage its expenditures and revenue. So if the government undertakes a counter-cyclical fiscal policy, then it may negatively impact its fiscal discipline. Now let's understand the meaning of this term counter-cyclical fiscal policy. So I'm sure you all understand the basic meaning of the word fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is basically the policy of the government through which it adjusts its expenditure and its revenues or the tax rates in order to influence the level of economic growth in the country. So fiscal policy is concerned with government expenditure and tax rates. Now let's understand the meaning of this term counter-cyclical. Here, counter word means opposite, and the word cyclical here implies the business cycle. So business cycle refers to the cycle of economic expansion and contraction. So when the economy is expanding, that period is called as boom, and when the economy is contracting, then that period is called as recession. Now let's understand this entire term, counter-cyclical fiscal policy. It means adopting that fiscal policy which is opposite to the current business cycle of the country. Or in other words, we can say that it is the strategy by the government to counter boom or recession through fiscal measures or through a fiscal policy. And why is this being done by the government? Because the government wants to stabilize the economy. So if the economy is undergoing a phase of recession, then the government will undertake the opposite policy, that is expansionary fiscal policy. That is, in order to counter this situation of recession, the government will undertake an expansionary fiscal policy. And what does an expansionary fiscal policy mean? Increasing the government expenditure and reducing the tax rates. And similarly, if the economy is experiencing boom, then in order to counter this, the government will take a contractionary fiscal policy. And a contractionary fiscal policy would mean reduction in government expenditure and increase in tax rates. Let's understand this with the help of an example. Suppose the economy right now is undergoing recession. And recession is a business cycle situation with slowing aggregate demand and falling growth in the economy. Now, in order to counter this situation of less aggregate demand and low economic growth, the government will undertake a counter-cyclical policy, and that counter-cyclical policy will be an expansionary fiscal policy. That is, by adopting this policy, the government will increase the level of demand and increase the level of economic growth in the country. And how will this be done? This will be done by increasing the government expenditure, which will increase the overall demand in the economy and reduce tax rates. Because reduction in tax rates would increase the disposable income of the households, and hence the total consumption expenditure in the economy will increase, and therefore overall aggregate demand will increase. So these two measures will basically help to increase aggregate demand and GDP growth. So I hope you have understood about the meaning of counter-cyclical fiscal policy. Now let's understand how it may have a negative impact on the fiscal discipline. Look here, if the government is increasing its expenditure to counter recession, an increase in expenditure and a reduction in tax rates would mean what? An increase in fiscal deficit. Why? Because we know that fiscal deficit is what? It is the difference between government expenditure and its revenue, that is taxes. So if its expenditure is increasing and its tax rates are decreasing, then the overall fiscal deficit will increase, which is not good for the government because it will hamper its fiscal discipline. So looking at the current situation of India, it might not be a good idea to adopt an expansionary fiscal policy because it will affect the fiscal discipline of the government. So I hope now you have understood why the government should not resort to counter-cyclical fiscal policy, which has been suggested by the World Bank. And the last step to improve economic growth of the country should be to enhance the efficiency of the banking sector. Why? Because this will help in the revival of bank credit in the economy. And for this, the World Bank has suggested consolidation of public sector banks, revision of the incentive structure of banks, ensuring a level playing field for private banks with the public banks, and promoting greater competition in the banking sector. So the way forward to improve the economic growth of the country would require a revival in private investments and exports, undertaking structural reforms, not resorting to a counter-cyclical fiscal policy, and enhancing the efficiency of the banking sector of the economy. So this topic forms a part of GS paper 3, and direct questions such as those relating to economic growth and counter-cyclical fiscal policy can be asked in the prelims exam, and also in the mains exam a question can be asked saying what steps should be taken to revive the economic growth of the country. With this, we will move on to the next article. The next important article appears on page 5 and it reads, Neutrino project gets environmental nod. So this article says that the Expert Appraisal Committee of the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change has granted environmental clearance to the INO project, or the India-based Neutrino Observatory project. And this project will be set up in the Bodhi West Hills in Tamil Nadu. This environmental clearance has been provided to INO project after the Expert Appraisal Committee was informed that this project has no scope for radioactivity and leaching of water. However, INO project still requires certain clearances. The project still requires clearances from State Wildlife Board of Tamil Nadu and Tamil Nadu Pollution Control Board. So we need to understand a little background about the INO project as well. This project had received environmental clearance from the ministry in 2011 as well, but that environmental clearance was suspended by the National Green Tribunal. Let's understand why NGT rejected the environmental clearance for the INO project. So the Ministry of Environment and Forests had classified the INO project as a Category B project, and it said that no environment impact assessment is required for the INO project because it is a Category B project. However, the NGT said that as per the EIA or Environment Impact Assessment Notification of 2006, any project that falls within 5 kilometers from an interstate boundary or within a notified national park or sanctuary has to be considered as a Category A project. Now, how is this related to the INO project? The NGT claimed that INO falls within 4.9 kilometers of the Madhiketan Shola National Park, and the Tamil Nadu-Kerala border is just 1 kilometer away from the INO project. And as a result, the classification of this project as a Category B project is incorrect, and INO should be classified as a Category A project. And as a result of this, the NGT suspended the environmental clearance for the INO project. So I hope till now you have understood about the environmental clearances that have been granted to the INO project and which clearances are yet to be provided to the INO project. Also, we have discussed that why in 2011 the National Green Tribunal suspended the environmental clearance for INO project. Through this, we have understood about two concepts about Category A project and Category B project. Also, we discussed this term, the Environment Impact Assessment or EIA. Let's understand the meaning of this term as well. So, Environment Impact Assessment is a process to predict the environmental consequences of any development project. This EIA is backed by the Environment Protection Act of 1986, which contains various provisions on the EIA methodology and process. So basically, this EIA takes an assessment of the various problems, conflicts and natural resource constraints which may not only affect the development project but they may also have an impact on the environment. And after such assessment, the EIA process identifies the measures to minimize these impacts. Now, this concept is also very important as it forms a part of your syllabus as well. Lastly, we will discuss a few features of the INO project. So, INO or the India-based Neutrino Observatory project is a multi-institutional effort aimed at building a world-class underground laboratory for nuclear physics research. Also, this INO project includes construction of an underground laboratory and associated surface facilities in the Bodhi West Hills of Tamil Nadu. It involves construction of an iron calorimeter detector for studying neutrinos and setting up of National Center for High Energy Physics at Madurai for the operation and maintenance of the underground laboratory. We should also know about the meaning of this term neutrino. So neutrinos are produced by the decay of radioactive elements, and these neutrinos are fundamental particles belonging to the lepton family. So with the help of this article, we have understood about many important concepts relating to the INO project, about Category A and Category B classification of projects, about environmental impact assessment and about neutrinos. These topics form a part of GS Paper 3 in the UPSC syllabus under the headings Science and Technology, Indigenization of Technology and Developing New Technology, and Environmental Impact Assessment. With this, we will move on to the next article. Next, we will discuss this article that appears on page 11 and it reads, how much plastic is there in your packaged water? So this article says that in a 10-month observational study conducted by Orb Media, it has been shown that a single water bottle may contain thousands of microscopic plastic particles. Various tests that have been conducted on several brands have revealed contamination of bottled water with plastic, and the main contaminants are polypropylene, nylon and polyethylene terephthalate or PET. In this respect, let us understand the concept of microscopic plastic particles or microplastics. So microplastics are small plastic pieces which are less than 5 millimeters long, and they can be harmful to the ocean and aquatic life. These microplastics are present in many sources such as carry bags, PET bottles, etc. Microplastics are associated with a complex mixture of chemicals that may transfer to humans and other organisms as well. The microplastics include chemical additives, many of which are endocrine disrupting and hazardous compounds, and these can have an adverse impact on human health and the environment. These endocrine disruptors are chemicals that may interfere with the body's endocrine system and produce adverse developmental, reproductive, neurological, and immune effects. Another type of microplastic is called as microbeads. And these microbeads are a type of microplastic which are used in some cleansers and toothpastes. Even though microbeads are banned in United States and Canada, they are still used in India. These are tiny pieces of polyethylene plastic that are added to health and beauty products. So with the help of this article, we have understood about the major contaminants of water that are present in plastic water bottles, and we have understood in detail about microplastics. A similar question pertaining to this topic has been asked in the UPSC prelims exam as well, which said there is some concern regarding the nanoparticles of some chemical elements that are used by the industry in the manufacture of various products. Why? Firstly, they can accumulate in the environment and contaminate water and soil. Second, they can enter food chains. Third, they can trigger the production of free radicals. So the concept of microscopic plastic particles becomes very important, and questions on this can be asked in the prelims exam. With this, we will move on to the next article. The next important news appears on page 1, and it reads, "The man who traced the history of time dies." Stephen W. Hawking, who was a Cambridge University physicist and cosmologist, passed away on March 14, 2008. He made significant contributions to the study of universe. His biggest contribution was towards the study of black holes. He formulated the laws for black hole mechanics. The radiation of the black hole was named after him as the Hawking radiation. As per the definition from NASA, a black hole is the place in space where gravity pulls so much that even light cannot get out. The gravity is so strong because matter has been squeezed into a tiny space. Apart from the study of black holes, Stephen Hawking also came up with a singularity theorem for the universe. His work mainly concentrated on bringing together relativity and quantum theory. Here, relativity means the nature of space and time, and quantum theory studies the behavior of the smallest particles in the universe. Also, Stephen Hawking was the author of the famous book, A Brief History of Time. For over more than 5 decades, Stephen Hawking suffered from the ALS disease, which is an acronym for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. And this is a neuromuscular wasting disease. It is also called as the Lou Gehrig's disease. The ALS disease affects the nerve cells in the brain and the spinal cord. And due to the ALS disease, the ability of the brain to control muscle movement is lost. With this, we will move on to the next article. The last important article that we will discuss today appears on page 8, and it reads, "Far short of the potential." Now, this article talks about the limited economic relationship between India and Japan. So, the author says that at present, Japan currently ranks as the third largest investor in India. However, still, the Indo-Japan relationship remains underwhelming. The share of India-Japan trade in Japan's total trade is nearly 1%. And there are various reasons why the share of Indo-Japan trade is very low in Japan's total trade. This is mainly because of certain problems in India such as inadequate infrastructure, complex tax regulations, land acquisition issues, and even cultural challenge acts as a problem for Indo-Japan trade relations. So, in order to boost trade relations between India and Japan, the author has suggested various measures. Firstly, the author suggests that Indian companies should be roped in to develop and design Japanese products for the South Asian markets. And secondly, the Japanese companies also need to adopt to the Indian working culture. And these measures can play an important role in increasing the share of Indo-Japan trade in Japan's total trade. With this, we come to an end to today's newspaper discussion. Now let's move on to question for the day.